The calendar flipped to September, and I felt a mix of urgency and opportunity. There are 4 months left until the end of the year, and the truth is, a lot of people have already given up. They've switched to autopilot, waiting for 2026 to arrive as if a page turning on the calendar could, on its own, bring a brand new life. But I learned the hard way. Nothing changes if I don't change. And it was in a September, a few years back, that I decided I would no longer be recognized only by my problems, my excuses, or my debts. I wanted to be recognized by my choices, my results, and the way I managed my money. It was just 4 months, but they changed the entire course of my life. Today, I know it's not about having a lot of time. It's about using the time that's left with intention. And September is the perfect starting point to create a new identity, a rich mindset, and put real money in the account before 2026. If this topic already sparked something in you, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and come with me to understand how to turn 4 months into a true turning point. Step 1. Rewrite your identity before planning your numbers. When I decided to change my life in 4 months, my first reaction was to open spreadsheets and try to organize my finances. But soon I realized none of that worked. I wrote things down, did the math, set goals, and the very next day I was back to repeating the same patterns. It was like trying to paint over a moldy wall without first cleaning the base. I wanted different numbers without being a different person. That's when I understood. Before touching my money, I needed to rewrite my identity. Who did I want to be by the end of the year? Which behaviors no longer matched the woman I was becoming? And which choices, even small ones, would bring this new version of me to life? That step changed everything. Because when identity changes, habits change. And when habits change, the numbers inevitably change too. I started asking myself every day, is this decision from the old version that just survives, or from the new version that thrives? And that helped me act consistently, even when no one else could see immediate results. The transformation started inside, but soon it began showing on the outside. That's when I realized, my numbers are just a reflection of the identity I uphold every day. Comment, I rewrite my identity now. If you've also realized that before changing your account, you need to change the way you see yourself. Step 2. Simplify your relationship with money to accelerate your wealth. At first, I thought financial freedom was complicated. Hard terms, sophisticated investments, strategies that seemed designed only for those who were already born wealthy. And that mindset kept me stuck. Every time I tried to learn more, I felt lost. And deep down, I ended up back in the same cycle of spending, feeling guilty, and starting over. Until I realized I was trying to complicate something that needed to be simplified. Women who build wealth don't overcomplicate. They clarify. They know how much they earn, how much they spend, and where their money is going. They're not trapped by miracle formulas, but instead build small daily structures that provide direction. When I simplified my relationship with money, everything became lighter. I created 3 mental boxes: essentials, building, and joy. With that, every dollar that came in had a destination, and that destination reflected my priorities, not my distractions. That habit gave me power, because for the first time, I stopped waiting for money to be left over. I started making it left over, and realizing that even small amounts could turn into wealth through consistency made me understand that freedom is not about how much you have, but about how you handle what you have. Today, my relationship with money isn't fear nor obsession. It's clarity. And clarity accelerates. Comment, I simplify my relationship with money. If you've also chosen to stop complicating and started giving direction to what you already have. Step 3. Build a minimum routine that sustains your new self. When I decided I wanted to become unrecognizable in 4 months, I thought I had to turn my life upside down. Change everything at once. Wake up at 5 in the morning, train hard, study for hours, cut out all pleasures. But it only took a week to realize that this just left me exhausted and ready to quit. The mistake was trying to stick to an impossible routine. That's when I learned. It's not about quantity, it's about consistency. A minimum, non-negotiable routine sustains much more than a giant list that doesn't fit into your reality. I chose 3 pillars: body, mind, and finances. Every day, something from those 3 had to happen, even if it was small. A 15-minute walk, reading 10 pages, tracking my expenses in 2 minutes. None of that seemed big, but together it built structure. This minimum routine was the foundation that kept me from giving up. Because even on hard days, I still did something. And each action, no matter how small, reinforced the new identity I was creating. The secret wasn't intensity, it was consistency. And consistency, repeated over 4 months, made me unrecognizable not just on the outside, but most importantly on the inside. Today I understand. It's not about forcing your life into a perfect routine. It's about creating a routine that sustains the life you've decided to live. Comment: my minimum routine keeps me steady. If you've also realized that consistency is worth more than fleeting intensity. Step 4. Set 4-month goals that fit your reality. In the past, I was an expert at setting unreachable goals. I promised myself that in just a few months I'd have perfect finances, a transformed body, and a flawless routine. The problem was, deep down I already knew I wouldn't stick to it. And when I failed, I felt guilty, frustrated, and too drained to try again. Until one day I understood. It's not the goal that needs to be grand. It's you who needs to be consistent. And consistent goals are the ones that fit your reality, not the fantasy you create when you're excited. That's when I decided to split my year into 4-month blocks. And I committed to choosing goals that were possible, but still transformative. Things I could actually sustain, even on tough days. That first September, my goals were simple. Save a fixed percentage of my salary, work out 3 times a week, and record all my expenses. Nothing glamorous. But 4 months later, I was unrecognizable. Because I followed through. And when I followed through, my confidence grew. And confidence is the foundation for bigger goals. Today, my goals still follow that same pattern. Possible, but challenging. Because it's not about proving anything to anyone. It's about proving to myself that I keep my promises. Comment: my goals fit my reality. If you've also realized that promising less and delivering more is what truly builds confidence and wealth. Step 5. Protect your energy from saboteurs during these 4 months. When I mapped out my goals from September to December, I noticed something curious. It wasn't the lack of time or money that held me back the most. What drained me most were external saboteurs. Sarcastic comments, social media comparisons, invitations that pulled me away from my goals, and even close people who didn't understand why I was changing. At first I tried to explain, justify every choice, convince others of the importance of my decision. But the more I talked, the more tired I became. That's when I realized, not everyone needs to understand, but I need to protect myself. I decided to shield my energy. I muted content that made me doubt myself. I learned to say no firmly, even when it came with disapproving looks. And most importantly, I filtered who I allowed near my most important ideas. In those 4 months, I realized that goals are pointless if you don't have the energy to reach them. And energy must be preserved. Every choice that spared me emotional drain became fuel to take me further. Today, I know it's not about isolating yourself. It's about creating a protective field around the woman you're becoming. Because the unrecognizable version that emerges by the end of the year doesn't grow in the noise of others, but in the consistency of my silence. Comment: my energy is shielded if you've also decided to protect yourself from everything that tries to drag your strength down. Step 6. Use money as construction, not anesthesia. Before I changed, I used money as anesthesia. Had a bad day? I'd buy something. Felt tired? I'd spend on something that gave me instant pleasure. And deep down, I knew I wasn't solving anything, just postponing the discomfort. The problem is, postponement comes with interest. The pleasure passed, but the bill stayed. That's when I realized, if I kept treating money as medicine, it would never become a tool for building. Wealth doesn't come from momentary relief, but from conscious use of what you have. So I decided to flip the logic. I started looking at every expense and asking myself, does this bring me closer to the life I want? Or does it just mask the life I have? That simple question changed my behavior. I began cutting impulsive purchases, not because I couldn't afford them, but because I no longer wanted to waste energy on illusions. With that focus, I was able to direct money toward what truly mattered: my emergency fund, small investments, education. And the impact was quick, not only on my bank account, but on my self-esteem. Because every choice reminded me that I was building something lasting, not patching temporary holes. Today, I don't buy to numb myself. I invest to strengthen myself. And that shift made 4 months enough to put me on another level. Comment: my money builds, not numbs. If you've also decided to use your resources as a foundation for freedom, not as an escape. Step 7. Reinforce your vision every day, even without immediate results. One of the biggest tests in those 4 months was learning to deal with time. Because the truth is, big results don't show up in a week. And if you don't have vision, you'll quit before the process even has a chance to bear fruit. I went through that. In the first days of change, it felt like nothing was happening. I worked hard, saved, studied, but my balance was still small. My body hadn't changed yet. My routine still felt heavy. The temptation to give up was huge. That's when I created a practice, reinforcing my vision daily, even without visible results. I wrote down who I was becoming. I visualized what my life would look like at the end of the year. I reminded myself why I had started. It was like rekindling the flame every day before it went out. And it worked. Because when the mind understands the reward is on the way, it sustains the body in motion. Discipline stopped feeling like punishment and became an act of self-love. Today I know, it's not quick results that change a life. It's the ability to keep going even without applause. The unrecognizable woman in the mirror doesn't appear overnight. She's shaped in the silence of ordinary days. Comment: I reinforce my vision every day. If you've also realized that consistency is the bridge between who you are and who you want to be. Step 8. Use the next 4 months as a lab for your new self. I used to think I had to be ready to change. I'd wait to feel confident, prepared, mistake-free, before finally taking the next step. But it was in that waiting that I lost too much time. Until I realized, you don't need to be ready, you need to be in practice. That's when I decided to turn 4 months into a laboratory. Not a space for perfection, but for experimentation. I tested new habits, new routines, new ways of handling my money. Some worked right away, others I had to adjust. But all of them taught me something. This lab mindset gave me freedom, because I stopped seeing mistakes as failures and started treating them as data. If something didn't work, I analyzed, adjusted, and moved on. No drama, no self-sabotage. By the end of the first 90 days, I realized the woman I was becoming wasn't born from the absence of mistakes, but from the courage to keep adjusting. And it was exactly that lightness that accelerated my progress. Today, I understand that every choice in these 4 months is like a field test, and that's what will solidify the unrecognizable version of myself I want to present in 2026. Comment: my life is my laboratory. If you've also realized that the secret isn't getting everything right on the first try, but not quitting the adjustment process. Step 9. Take full responsibility for the next 4 months. At the start of my journey, I had a list of invisible culprits. My salary wasn't enough, the economy didn't help, people didn't support me, and time never seemed to be on my side. And as long as I pointed outward, my life stayed exactly the same. That's when I realized a truth that completely shifted my perspective. I'm not to blame for everything that happened to me, but I am 100% responsible for getting out of this place. Taking that responsibility wasn't easy. At first it felt like a huge weight, but then I understood. The real weight was living as if something outside of me would rescue me. Responsibility in practice is freedom. It's when I accept that I have the power to choose, even small things every single day. In those 4 months that I used as a turning point, every time I felt like giving up, I reminded myself, no one is going to walk for me. Either I get up and keep moving, or I stay trapped in the same cycle and enter the new year unchanged. That silent commitment to myself made all the difference. Because every time I chose to act, even when tired, I reinforced the identity of a woman who builds, not one who waits. Today, I don't outsource responsibility anymore, and that's why, day after day, I become more of the owner of the life I've decided to create. Comment: I am 100% responsible. If you've also decided to stop waiting for rescuers and start owning your journey with strength. Step 10. Hold your decision until December, even when it feels like nothing has changed. The biggest challenge in those 4 months wasn't starting. It was holding on to the decision during the days when it seemed like nothing was working. When I woke up tired, checked my account and saw no big changes, or noticed that my efforts still hadn't echoed in the outside world. In those moments, the old voice would appear. You're working for nothing. Better leave it for 2026. It's useless, nothing changes. And that's when I learned. What would make me unrecognizable wasn't the motivation of the first days, but the firmness of holding my decision until the end. I reminded myself that roots grow before flowers bloom. That structure is built in silence, out of sight, and that quitting close to the end would be like abandoning a harvest just before it appeared. So I chose to stay, even on dull days, even when it seemed invisible. The decision I made in September was bigger than any fleeting doubt, and that consistency made all the difference. Because when December came, I didn't just see visible results. I understood that true wealth is built in silent repetition. Today, I know I became unrecognizable not because everything was easy, but because I chose to remain. Comment: I hold my decision until the end. If you've also realized that consistency is the bridge between September and an unrecognizable version of yourself in 2026. When September began, I could have kept doing what I always did, procrastinating, waiting for the new year, believing that in 2026 everything would magically change. But I chose differently. I chose to use 4 months as a turning point. And that choice is what made me reach the end of the year unrecognizable. Not because I won the lottery or discovered some hidden secret, but because I decided day after day to uphold a new identity, simplify my relationship with money, shield my energy, and patiently build the version of me I always knew existed inside. These 4 months taught me that it's not time that's missing. It's intention. And when you put intention into what's left, what remains is strength, clarity, and wealth. If you've made it this far, maybe you already feel this call. To stop waiting, to stop stalling, to make now your turning point. It's not about changing everything at once. It's about starting, and not stopping until December. Because if you hold this decision, you'll begin 2026 unrecognizable not only to others, but most importantly, to yourself. Comment, I choose to be unrecognizable by 2026. If you've also decided to use these 4 months as the foundation for your breakthrough. And if this content strengthened you, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it with another woman who also needs a turning point before the year ends.